So I feel like I need to add a little bit more detail about the last video I made on my experience with the eating in the carnivore diet and animal-based diet, which I largely still follow a lot of principles from the animal-based diet. Sometimes when I make these videos, my ideas are all over the place, and I just feel like it's kind of disorganized, so I wanted to clarify a little bit. So I've been eating I did a very strict window of eating and carnivore diet, a very short window of that, and then I pretty quickly went to animal based. And I would say I've eaten in that way for a good solid year. And more recently, I talked about how I was including some carbohydrates back into my diet. Of course, the animal based diet has the inclusion of fruit and honey, which some people don't agree with in the carnivore community. But I don't feel like it bothers me because I'm not diabetic, I don't have any problems, I exercise, and I'm generally pretty healthy. So that's what I've been doing: milk, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, things like that. And then I started eating rice maybe a couple days a week on top of that, the night before a workout or the day before a workout, and not a huge quantity, but just a serving of rice. And more recently, potatoes, like, air fried potatoes, things like that in chunks. And I have had, like, for example, today I had sourdough bread for breakfast, and I'm just kind of including some carbohydrates back in my diet, chilling on the fat just a little bit because I don't feel like I have any health problems, and I think I'm so active that the carbohydrates don't have a bad negative effect on me. But again, I'm not someone who suffered from like a metabolic condition. So if somebody is pre-diabetic, they're going to have a much different experience than me, who is just kind of recreationally following the diet. But on my last video, I talked about how eating in that way had helped me to um, fix some issues with IBS and kind of help me understand what vegetables and what starchy stuff triggers me to have gastrointestinal problems and IBS flare-ups. So anyway, I've slowly added things back, and sometimes I might eat something and be like, yeah, this actually makes me feel unwell, and I'm not going to include this back in my diet. But small quantities of things like spinach, whatever, and certain other vegetables have been fine. Cucumbers, squash, zucchini, that kind of thing. Tomatoes have been fine so far. Bell peppers in very small quantity and well cooked, things like that. Rice, potatoes seem to be okay. And I've included these things back and slowly tried to gauge how my body responds to them. So anyway, moving forward, I've included the carbohydrates back. My goal was never just to eliminate for the sake of elimination. I know some people were very passionate about eating that way. And I think for the majority of people, this is what I think. I think the reason carnivore and animal-based are effective is because most Americans eat a lot of bullshit. And they eat Cheez-Its and Doritos and Papa John's pizza and Burger King and Taco Bell and sugary drinks, like, they drink Arizona teas and Dr. Pepper and all this. And I think, what the biggest benefit is that you're going to eating only nutrient-dense foods. You are completely eliminating empty carbohydrates and empty calories from your diet and going to, eating meat and eggs, which are going to be very nutrient-dense. Animal-based, same thing, nutrient dense, with yogurt, full-fat dairy, things like that, and fruit, nutrient dense. So I think that is the biggest thing that benefits people, because it's a lot harder for you to eat. Also, it's harder for you to overeat, because if you're eating things like pork belly, ribeye steaks, and eggs, it's going to be a lot harder for you to eat 2,000 calories of that in one sitting than it is for you to eat 2,000 calories of like honey buns and Funyuns, in one sitting. You can eat that empty stuff and you don't get full. But I think it's more, there's more satiety that's induced from eating in that manner, and people are getting only nutrient dense foods. I think that's the biggest takeaway of why it's so successful for people, in my personal opinion. I can't claim any scientific anything, but it's my personal take. I think that is the biggest net benefit for people, is that they're switching up their diet to eat nutrient dense stuff. And it's hard to overeat when you're eating high fat and like that, because your body's going to tell you you're full. You just can't eat as much. Now, that being said, I think on some level it's an oversimplification, though. It's very easy for when someone's not active, like if they're not an athlete or very active doing cardio, lifting weights, that sort of thing. It's very, very like easy. You don't have to track calories. You don't have to think too much to eat in that method. And that's something that I personally liked also about it, is how easy it is to maintain. But I think we can't gloss over that the biggest thing is that Americans are just not moving around, and they're sedentary largely. Like Americans, compared to how we lived 100 years ago, I mean, we are sitting all day. We're sitting at our jobs. We're sitting in our cars. We're not walking. And I think that we cannot, I'm not saying you can out exercise a bad diet, but I think that if, like, I understand diet is important, and in a lot of ways it's more important than exercise, because it's easier to eat properly and not overeat and not gain the weight. It's a lot harder to burn the weight off and the calories off if you overeat than it is to just eat at maintenance. But what I'm trying to say is, if people were active and doing like roofing or something like that, like an active job or construction or farming, they're going to be burning a lot more calories. I don't think if we had a population of people who are eating, like, I don't personally think if we had a population of people eating like pot roast with potatoes and a little bit of fruit, like seasonal fruit, and drinking mostly water and like black coffee and teas, I don't think you'd see diabetes and obesity be what it is. I don't. That's my belief. I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying carnivore and animal-based don't work, but I don't think if we were an active population doing work how we did 100 years ago, that people would be dying of all this metabolic stuff and cancer if they were eating, again, meat, potatoes, rice, and some vegetables, nuts, whatever, whole foods, milk, coffee, etc. I don't think we'd see near as many issues, and stuff not cooked in seed oil as well. I don't think so. I think people would be healthier, and I think that their metabolic health would be better, and just for moving and stuff as well. So I just think it can be an oversimplification, that's like the only way to basically be healthy, or like the optimal diet. And the using the term like the optimal human diet is kind of a slippery slope, because humans in times of survival, a steak might be, or beef might be the ideal thing you want and crave, but it's like, if you have to eat some grains to survive, people are going to do it. Humans are resourceful, and it's kind of like, hey, when you got to go to the bathroom, you'd love to go in the nice hotel with the attendant where it's very clean, use that bathroom, right? But if you got to use the 7-Eleven bathroom at a pinch that hasn't been cleaned in 20, looks like it hasn't been cleaned in 20 years, when you got to go, you got to go. It's the same thing with eating. If you're literally starving to death, humans are going to be resourceful and eat what is available to them. I'm not saying that all those sources are necessarily the most ideal for being healthy. I'm just saying that in the wild, people are going to resort to what they have to survive. And so yeah, I just think it's an oversimplification, and I think that it does have benefits, but it's something where you may want to try it, see how it works for you, slowly include some things back. If you feel worse, maybe not include those things, reevaluate based on your own body and how you respond. But that's all I want to do, is just add a little bit of clarity to my last video, and that's it. That's all that's on my mind. Later.